Hey guys, here we are at the end of another week, pouring with rain outside, made it home safely, time for the weekly wrap-up. Every week that I do my weekly wrap-up, I get amazed about the pace and momentum of the Australian ecosystem, and it gets me excited. We meet with a lot of people throughout the week, and there's one common theme going throughout these conversations, and that is people are passionate about contributing to the ecosystem. If we look at just the past week, there have been 2 contributions to enable a greater and faster ecosystem. One in Sydney, one in Melbourne. Let's start in Melbourne, where I'm based. Startup Victoria have appointed a new CEO, Georgia Beattie. If you come back to all those people we meet that are passionate, Georgia first went to her Startup Vic event in 2014, fell in love with it, and now look where she is. One of the focus areas of Georgia taking on the CEO role of Startup Victoria is that she wants to attract more world-class software companies like Stripe, Slack and Square. Make sure you take the time to follow Georgia on Twitter as she starts her new role as CEO of Startup Victoria. Alright, let's move up north to New South Wales, where Tech Sydney founder Dean McEvoy has launched a possible campaign and raising $500,000. Full credit to these guys up in Sydney. They've almost hit their 500,000. They've got some great backing from companies like Atlassian, Canva and Airbnb. So just based on that Startup Victoria appointment and the capital raise being done by Tech Sydney, the ecosystem is about to shift into a new gear, which is bloody exciting. With the growing momentum in the ecosystem, I wanted to spend some time talking about all the new content that's being published online. I often get asked how I stay up to date with all the tech news, what tools I use to aggregate all the content, and how I digest the content. So I thought rather than telling everybody one by one when they ask me how I stay on top of it, that I'd spend some time today talking about it. All been in the same boat as everybody else. So many tweets, so many blog posts, so many podcasts. How the hell do you stay on top of all of this? There's certainly a lot of content out there, so I'm going to show you how I tackle content overload to ensure I get the right information at the right time. There are 6 main sources of content that I receive information on, but I have different frequencies and different levels of engagement with each platform. Put these bad boys into buckets: primary, secondary, and the new kids on the block. If anyone knows me, they know Twitter is my primary source of content, but I also use newspapers, not the paper ones, the digital ones. The secondary sources are LinkedIn and RSS feeds. I prefer to use an RSS reader over getting newsletters constantly in my inbox throughout the day. The new kids on the block, of course, are Snapchat and also podcasts, which I've got on board recently and absolutely loving them. Alright, now that I've taken you through my primary sources, my secondary sources, and the new kids on the block, let's dive into how I actually consume this content. I like to consume my primary sources of content before I've left the home in the morning. That way I know exactly what's going on in market, both locally and also globally. The newspapers are read on my iPad in the morning, not just the tech news, also the global news. You need to know what's going on outside the tech world. And then there's Twitter, and I'm not an obsessed follower. I have about 350 people that I follow, probably a few more, but I triangulate who I follow so that I don't get overloaded. If you're wondering what buckets I use to triangulate the content on Twitter, I follow industry colleagues, friends, news sources, and companies I am involved with. With the secondary sources, I tend to check them every few days because usually the breaking news has been surfaced either through my primary sources or someone's called me about it. The RSS feeds are a combination of both tech and non-tech sources, but I use a great tool called Feedly, which allows me to be able to read it in a really slick way. Feedly have a really interesting story. Back in July 2013, when Google Reader was shut down, Feedly had their inflection point and took the world by storm. They seized the moment, took the opportunity, and doubled down on product, and I've been using them every single day since. Throughout the day, I'm scanning through social media, but because the daylight hours are so crazy, I never get a chance to digest any of the great articles I come across. So in order to not forget anything that comes through, I use an amazing app that's good for both desktop and mobile called Pocket. It's a super simple app. It's got integrations with both Chrome and Twitter and most other sources, including Feedly, and just makes it easy. And then when I have some time, I open up the Pocket app, usually on my iPad or my iPhone, and there are the articles in long form ready for me to read. And if you're interested when that time is, it's usually later on at night, once I've caught up on all my emails, the kids have gone to bed. It's also on the airplane or picking up kids from an activity. So although I have my processes around the primary and the secondary content, there's still breaking news that I need pushed to me the minute it happens so I don't miss out. To surface this type of breaking content, I use an app called Nuzzle, which takes a look at everybody I follow on Twitter, and the minute people start retweeting or tweeting it, I get exactly that email alert from Nuzzle where I found out about Georgia Beatty's appointment as Startup Vic CEO earlier this week. Earlier on, when I was talking about my secondary sources of content, I said that I'd much prefer be getting newsletters sent into my RSS reader Feedly than via email. There is one newsletter that I do get sent into my inbox every morning at 6 a.m, and that's Paul Bennett's Newsbot. And a quick shout out to the 2 new kids on the block which have started taking up more and more of my time. Snapchat, I love it. I'm using it now. You're seeing my weekly wrap-ups. If you love it, tweet it out there and tell other people to follow as well. And podcasts. Only a couple of weeks ago, I watched my first 20-minute VC podcast with Wes Chan. It was brilliant, and I've started subscribing and listening to others.
That's it. We're done with the weekly wrap-up. Content overload has been sorted. Hopefully you all have a great week next week. See you later.